My wife cheated on me with her boss, stole $250, $0 in inheritance money, and now she's claiming half our house. Could this really happen after 10 years of marriage? Hello, everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy telling a story about how my wife, Lisa, turned out to be a lying, cheating nightmare. Honestly, I always believed in the idea that marriage was about loyalty and trust, but after 10 years with her, I learned the hard way that some women are just masters at hiding their true selves. The craziest part, I found out she'd been screwing her boss, Tom, for months, while simultaneously stealing $250,000 from my inheritance. Yeah, you read that right. It's like a bad soap opera, but it's real life, and the betrayal hit me like a freight train. It all started about 2 weeks ago. I'd always been a guy who prided himself on being steady, reliable, and straightforward. I work as an architect, and Lisa has always been the picture of the perfect wife. Beautiful, sharp, a little bitchy at times, but I loved her. We had a decent life, a nice house in the suburbs, 2 kids I adore, and enough savings to keep us comfortable. But I noticed small things that didn't add up. She started staying late at work more often, claiming she was crushing deadlines. But her phone was always locked, and whenever I tried to see her messages, she'd get defensive or change the subject. One night I decided to check her phone. I know trust and all that, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. So I grabbed her phone while she was in the shower, and what I saw made my stomach turn. There were dozens of texts from Tom, her boss, and the tone was flirtatious, full of innuendos and outright suggestive. They were talking about meeting up after hours, sharing secret jokes, and even talking about how much they needed to see each other. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut, but that wasn't the worst part. While scrolling through her messages, I also found a series of emails, encrypted, hidden in a folder I'd never seen before. They detailed her plans to transfer a huge chunk of money from my inheritance account into a secret account she'd set up. I'd always known she was ambitious, but I never suspected she'd go this far. Turns out, she'd stolen $250, $0 from my family's inheritance. Money meant for the kids' college funds, for emergencies, for us to live comfortably. She'd been planning this for months, it seemed, and was just waiting for the right moment to move it all. I couldn't believe what I was reading. My wife, the woman I trusted with everything, had betrayed me on every level. She was cheating, lying, stealing. She'd even been lying about her whereabouts, claiming she was at work when she was with Tom. I felt sick, angry, hurt, and honestly just numb. I didn't sleep that night, replaying everything I'd discovered. I knew I had to confront her, but I didn't even know how to start. How do you face someone you thought you knew, who's been sneaking around behind your back, stealing your family's money, and lying about everything? The next morning, I decided I could ignore it anymore. I waited until she got home from work, her face looking a little too innocent, like she had no idea what I'd found. When she walked in, I asked her straight out if she'd been cheating on me and if she'd stolen the money. Her reaction was immediate. She threw her hands up, gave me that classic, "What are you talking about?" look, and then started lying, saying I was paranoid, that Tom was just a friend, and that the money was some kind of mistake or maybe an investment she was planning to make. I told her I saw the messages, the emails, everything. She stared at me with this icy glare and told me I was crazy, that I was overreacting, that she loved me but I was just insecure. I felt my blood boil. How could she lie so effortlessly? I knew she was a bitch, but this was something else. I was furious but also devastated. I loved her, I really did, but I couldn't ignore the fact that she'd betrayed me in the worst ways possible. I kept asking myself how I could have missed the signs, how I'd been so blind to what she was really capable of. I kept replaying the good times, the memories, the holidays, the quiet nights at home, all tainted now by the realization that she'd been living a double life. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the money she stole, the affair, and what it all meant for us. I felt a mixture of anger, sadness, and a strange sense of betrayal that cut so deep I didn't even recognize myself anymore. I knew I had to decide what to do next, but honestly I was just overwhelmed. Part of me wanted to confront her again, demand the truth, and maybe even forgive her if she was truly sorry. But deep down, I knew that trust was shattered beyond repair. The question was I going to let her get away with this? Or was I going to do something about it? That's where I am right now, trying to piece everything together, trying to figure out whether this marriage can be salvaged or if I need to cut my losses and move on. Because the truth is, after everything I found out, nothing feels the same anymore. After that night, everything changed. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, and I kept going over the evidence in my head like some twisted movie. The fact that Lisa, my wife, had been cheating on me with her boss and stealing from my family's inheritance, $250, no less, was a blow I never saw coming. I'd always thought we were solid, that we had a future planned out. But now I was faced with a reality that made me question everything. Was she a liar? A thief? Did she even love me? Or was I just some fool she married so she could have a comfortable life while she played her games? The next day, I decided I needed to confront her again, face to face, and get some answers. I wanted to hear her lie to my face. I knew from the start that she'd deny everything, that she'd spin some bullshit about how I was paranoid or imagining things, but I also knew I couldn't keep pretending I didn't know. I wasn't going to let her gaslight me. I needed her to admit it, or at least give me some kind of explanation. When she came home that afternoon, I was already waiting in the living room with my phone recording just in case I needed proof later. She looked surprised, maybe even a little nervous, which was a rare thing for her. Lisa's the type who's always been bitchy, yes, but confident. She's used to getting her way, used to manipulating people. I could see the flicker of guilt behind her eyes, and that made me angrier. Because if she was innocent, why was she so defensive? Why was she avoiding the truth? I started with a simple question. Lisa, tell me what's really going on. I know about Tom. I saw the messages, the emails. I know about the money you stole. Her eyes widened for a second, then she scoffed. You're crazy. You've been snooping, haven't you? You think I'm cheating on you? Please, Tom's just a boss I work with. It's nothing serious. And the money, I was just trying to start a business, you know. I wanted us to be better off. You're overreacting. Her words sounded rehearsed, like she'd practiced them in front of a mirror. I could tell she was trying to stay calm, but her voice trembled just enough to give her away. I pressed. Further, you expect me to believe that? The messages say otherwise. You've been lying from the start, and the money, how could you take that without saying anything? That's our inheritance, Lisa. It's not yours to steal. She rolled her eyes and crossed her arms. Look, I don't know what you want me to say. I made mistakes, sure, but I love you. I didn't mean for it to get this complicated. I was just trying to make us better. Maybe I thought I could fix everything without telling you. Yeah, I screwed up, but I'm not some kind of monster. That's when I saw her true colors. The way she played victim, the way she twisted her lies to make it seem like I was the one at fault. It was infuriating. I felt my blood boiling. How could she sit there and pretend she was innocent? I'd always been the one working hard, providing, making sure everything was okay. And now I find out she's been screwing her boss, stealing from us and lying through her teeth. I told her I needed some space, that I couldn't stay in the same house with her right now. I said I'd think about everything, about what to do next. And honestly, I was already planning my next move. I didn't want to jump to divorce right away, but I knew I couldn't keep living with a liar and a thief. I needed to see how deep this rabbit hole went, whether there was more to uncover. That night I sat alone in the dark, staring at the ceiling, feeling numb but also furious. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind for so long. I'd always believed her when she said she loved me, when she claimed she was committed. Turns out that was just a mask she wore to keep up appearances. Beneath it was this cold, calculating woman who'd been betraying me in every way possible. The worst part, I still loved her, or maybe I just loved the idea of our life together. But now I saw her for what she really was, a liar, a cheat, a thief. I kept asking myself if I could forgive her, if I should try to save this marriage. But deep down, I knew trust was gone. When someone steals that much from you, from your family, it's almost impossible to come back from it, and the cheating. That was just the icing on the cake. I realized I had to do something, but I wasn't sure what yet. All I knew was that the woman I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize, and I had to figure out what that meant for my future. After that confrontation, everything felt different. The house, which once seemed like our safe haven, now felt like a trap. I couldn't shake the image of Lisa's smirk, her lies, and the way she tried to play victim even after I caught her red-handed. I knew I needed to get some legal advice, but honestly, I was still in shock. The betrayal cut so deep that I kept questioning whether I was even thinking clearly. But I also knew I couldn't just sit around and do nothing. I had to act, had to protect what was left of my sanity and my future. I started by digging into the financial mess she'd left behind. I contacted a lawyer, a guy I found through a recommendation from a friend. The lawyer, Mike, was sharp, no nonsense, and immediately saw the potential disaster I was sitting on. I told him everything: the stolen inheritance, the affair, the secret account, the lies. He took notes, asked for copies of the emails I found, and then laid out my options. First, he warned me about the potential for her to claim half the house and any joint assets, given she was technically my wife. That's when I realized how much trouble I was really in. Mike explained that I'd need to file for a legal separation, and if I wanted to pursue a divorce, I'd have to be prepared for a fight. Lisa, he said, would likely try to claim she was entitled to half of everything, especially since we'd been married for 10 years. The fact that she'd stolen such a significant amount of money complicated things further. I also mentioned the affair, and he suggested that could be used as evidence of misconduct, which might influence the division of assets. Meanwhile, I started gathering all the evidence I could find: screenshots of the messages, copies of the emails, bank statements showing the suspicious transfers. I wanted to be ready for whatever legal battle was coming. I also thought about how to confront her again, but honestly, I was exhausted. Every time I looked at her, I felt a mix of anger and disgust. She was so good at lying, so manipulative. She'd deny everything, cry, plead, and then spin some new story to make herself look innocent. I didn't trust her anymore, not even a little. One night, I decided I needed to see how far she was willing to go. I started secretly recording her conversations when she thought I wasn't listening. I wanted to catch her in a lie, to have more proof if I needed it. It was a strange feeling, like I was spying on my own wife, but I knew I had to cover all my bases, and sure enough, she didn't disappoint. I heard her on the phone talking to her sister, saying she was getting everything ready because I was going to lose everything. That was a wake-up call. She wasn't just lying, she was planning to fight dirty. The more I learned, the more I realized how deep her deception went. She'd been planning this for months, maybe even longer. The affair, the theft, the lies, all interconnected. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind, so naive. I'd always thought she was just a little bitchy, a bit bossy, but I never suspected she was capable of this level of betrayal. It made me question everything about our marriage, about her character. Now I was at a crossroads. Part of me wanted to just walk away, cut my losses, and start over. But another part, probably the stubborn, angry part, wanted to fight for what was rightfully mine. I was determined to get back the money she stole, to protect my kids, and to make her pay for the pain she caused. I wasn't naive enough to think it would be easy. I knew she'd fight me every step of the way, probably with lies and manipulation. But I also knew I had to stand my ground. I started making a plan. I'd file for legal separation first, get the house and assets evaluated, and then proceed with a divorce if that's what it took. I'd also look into how to recover the stolen inheritance money, maybe even press charges if I could. I felt a strange mixture of resolve and dread. I was angry, yes, but also hurt. How could she do this to me, to our family, the woman I married? The woman I loved. She was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize. But I also knew I wasn't going to let her win. She thought she was clever, that she could manipulate her way out of this mess. But I had proof, and I was going to use it. I was sick of feeling helpless. It was time to take control, to fight for what was rightfully mine, and to finally expose her for who she really was. I didn't know how it was going to end, but I was done being the naive husband who trusted blindly. From now on, I was going to be the one in charge of my life again. The legal process moved faster than I expected. Once I handed over all my evidence, screenshots, bank statements, the emails, Mike, my lawyer, started working on the paperwork. I still couldn't believe how easily Lisa spun her stories, how she still insisted she was innocent, claiming I was paranoid or jealous. It was like talking to a wall. Every time I pressed her about the stolen money or her affair, she'd give me that bitchy smirk, deny everything, and say I was overreacting. She kept insisting she loved me, that Tom was just a colleague, and that I was crazy for even thinking she'd do something so disgusting. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I knew better. I had the proof. I had the recordings, the emails, the financial transactions. It was only a matter of time before the truth came out in court. I was determined to get justice, not just for myself, but for the kids and for the money she stole from my family. That inheritance was meant to secure their future, and she turned it into her personal piggy bank. In the meantime, Lisa started acting even more bitchy and entitled. She'd lash out at me, accuse me of trying to ruin her, and throw fits whenever I brought up the divorce or the finances. She even tried to guilt-trip me, saying I was ruining her life and that I was overreacting because I was insecure. The nerve of her. She had no shame. She'd cry, scream, and then switch to her usual manipulative tactics, playing the victim, pretending she was the one being mistreated. One day, she even told me that she was entitled to half the house because we'd been married for 10 years. I couldn't believe her audacity. The house was in my name and I had all the receipts and proof that I'd been the sole breadwinner. I told her she was dreaming, but she just sneered and said, "You're not going to get away with this. I'll see you in court and I'll make sure I get what I deserve." That's when I realized she was dead serious about fighting me over everything. She wasn't going down without a fight. I started to feel a strange mix of relief and anger. Relief because I finally had a plan, and anger because I was sick of her lies, her manipulations, and her betrayal. I kept thinking about all the times I'd trusted her, loved her, and tried to make this marriage work. And now I saw her for what she really was, a selfish, calculating woman who used me and my family's money as her personal playground. I also began to prepare for the worst. I knew she'd probably try to turn the kids against me, say I was a terrible father, or accuse me of trying to take everything from her. That's why I started documenting everything, her fights, her accusations, her behavior. I wanted to have a clear record of her lies and manipulations. I wasn't going to let her manipulate the court or the kids. As the days went on, I felt myself hardening. I was no longer the naive husband who believed in happily ever after. I was becoming someone else, more cautious, more guarded, ready to fight for what's rightfully mine. I also started to realize that this wasn't just about money or betrayal, it was about respect. About standing up for myself, for my children, and for the truth. One night I sat down and thought about everything. About the years I'd wasted trying to keep this marriage afloat. About the trust I'd given her, only to have it shattered in an instant. I wondered if I'd ever truly love her again or if I was just clinging to the past. But then I reminded myself, I deserved better. My kids deserve better. And I wasn't going to let her ruin our lives any further. I knew the legal battle was just beginning and I was prepared for her to fight dirty. But I also knew I had the upper hand. I had the evidence, the law on my side, and a determination I'd never felt before. I was ready to take her to court, to fight for the house, the money, and the truth. Because at the end of the day, I realized that some betrayals are so deep that they can't be fixed. And I was finally ready to accept that, no matter how much it hurt. The court date finally came around, and I felt like I was walking into a battlefield. Lisa was there, looking every bit the manipulative bitch she had become, smug, confident, and ready to fight dirty. She brought her own lawyer, of course, a slick guy who looked like he knew exactly how to twist the facts and spin her lies. I knew from the start she was going to do everything possible to drag this out, to make me look like the bad guy, and to keep as much as she could for herself. That's why I went into it prepared, evidence organized, witnesses ready, and a clear plan of attack. The courtroom was tense from the moment we stepped inside. Lisa sat there with a sneer, glancing at me like I was some fool she could easily manipulate. Her lawyer started by, arguing that we had an equal partnership, that she deserved half the house because we'd been married so long. He claimed that her affair was just a moment of weakness, and that the money she stole was a misunderstanding, trying to minimize her crimes. I clenched my fists, knowing I had the proof to blow all that out of the water. I took the stand and laid out everything: how I discovered her affair, the secret account, the stolen inheritance, and her lies. I presented the emails, the bank statements, the recordings I made secretly. I explained how she had been manipulating me, her family, and even the court with her lies. I could see her lawyer's face tighten as I spoke, realizing I had caught her in a web of deception she couldn't spin her way out of. Lisa's turn was next. Her lawyer tried to make her look like the victim, claiming she was under incredible stress, that she made mistakes, and that her affair was just a fling, a mistake she deeply regretted. She looked at me with those fake tears and said she loved me, that she was trying to build a better life for us, but I knew better. I saw her for what she was: a liar, a thief, and a manipulator. I watched her try to play the victim, but I wasn't buying it anymore. The judge listened carefully, asking questions, scrutinizing the evidence. I could tell he wasn't convinced by her lies. When it was finally over, he took a long pause before delivering his verdict. I sat there, heart pounding, waiting for the outcome. The judge ruled in my favor. He awarded me full custody of the house, ordered Lisa to pay back the stolen inheritance, and denied her claim to half the property. He also noted her misconduct, her affair and theft, and how they impacted the marriage and the division of assets. I felt a wave of relief wash over me, but also a deep sense of exhaustion. After all the lies, manipulations, and betrayals, justice was finally served. But the aftermath was complicated. Lisa was furious, of course. She threw a tantrum outside the courtroom, screaming that I was ruining her life, that I was trying to take everything, and that she'd fight me till the end. Her words echoed in my ears, but I didn't care. I knew her true nature now, and I was done playing her game. I felt a strange mix of victory and sadness. Victory because I'd won, but sadness because I'd lost the woman I once loved. In the days that followed, I focused on rebuilding my life. I moved out of the house, started the process of separating everything, and began to pick up the pieces of what was left. My kids didn't fully understand what was happening, but I promised them I'd do everything I could to protect them and give them a stable future. I also started therapy, trying to deal with the emotional fallout of betrayal and heartbreak. Looking back, I realized how blind I'd been for so long. I trusted Lisa because I loved her, because I wanted to believe in the best in people. But the truth is, some betrayals cut so deep that they change you forever. I learned that you have to be vigilant, that trust isn't something you give blindly, and that sometimes fighting for what's right is the only option. Would I do it all over again? No, but I can say this: I'm stronger now. I've learned to stand up for myself, to fight for what's mine, and to recognize the signs of a woman who's capable of so much darkness. And I hope anyone else going through something similar realizes that justice might be slow, but it's worth fighting for. Because in the end, honesty and integrity matter more than any material possession or fleeting illusion of love. And I'll never let anyone betray me like that again. In the aftermath of everything, I've had a lot of time to reflect on what this entire nightmare has taught me. Honestly, I don't think I'll ever fully recover from the betrayal, but I've come to a point where I can see things more clearly. The trust I once had in Lisa is gone, replaced by a bitter awareness of how dangerous deception can be. I used to believe that love and loyalty could conquer all, but now I understand that sometimes the only way to protect yourself is to face the truth head-on, no matter how painful it is. Getting through the legal process was exhausting, but it was also a wake-up call. It made me realize how fragile a marriage can be when lies and greed take over. I've learned to be more vigilant, more cautious. I've also become more aware of how important it is to protect your financial and emotional boundaries, things I should have done from the start. If I could give anyone advice, it's this: never ignore the signs. Trust your instincts, keep your finances secure, and don't be afraid to fight for what's yours. The kids are still adjusting to the new reality. They're young, and I try to shield them from the worst of it, but I know they sense that something's changed. I've promised myself I'll do everything I can to give them stability and love, even if their mother isn't around anymore. I want them to grow up knowing what integrity looks like, and that sometimes walking away from a toxic situation is the bravest thing you can do. As for me, I'm slowly rebuilding my life. I've started dating again, cautiously, and I've learned to value honesty and transparency more than ever. I no longer take trust for granted. I understand that betrayal can come from the most unexpected places, and the only way to survive it is to be prepared and to stand firm. I've also realized that revenge, while satisfying, in the moment doesn't fix everything. What truly matters is moving forward, learning from the pain, and making sure I never let myself fall into the same trap again. Looking back, I see a man who was naive and trusting, someone who believed that love was enough to get through anything. But I also see a man who's stronger now, who's learned the importance of self-respect, boundaries, and resilience. The betrayal hurt, yes, but it also made me realize that I am capable of handling much more than I thought. I don't regret fighting for what was rightfully mine, even if the cost was high. So I guess what I want to say to anyone reading this is, don't ignore the red flags. Trust is fragile, and once broken, it's almost impossible to mend. Protect yourself, your heart, your money, your dignity, and don't be afraid to stand up when someone crosses the line. Because at the end of the day, your happiness and self-respect are what matter most. And I've learned that sometimes the hardest battles lead to the greatest lessons. I may have lost a lot, but I've gained a new sense of strength, one I never knew I had.